Anyway,
Good.
hi, Tim. I don't know who M. Cran is. I don't know your first name, so I'm just gonna say hi. Hi, how are you? Welcome to Bloop. Thank you guys. I'm just gonna wait just like a few minutes, so I'll just start talking about nonsense for a minute. I hope everybody's day was good. This week has been kind of weird. Like, I got a weird stomach thing yesterday, and I'm thankful that it only lasted like 24 hours, and I'm good to go. So nobody's in here in the studio with me, so I won't get anybody sick. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing, right? How are you, Laura? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I was sharing with Rebecca earlier today. I've been just struggling with migraine stuff and my MDDS portion of it. So like the dizziness and the drop attacks and things like that. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Some
It's been one of those
migraines.
weeks.
It's been a week, you guys. It has been a week.
Yeah, and the weather, it's like Florida doesn't know if it's wintertime or if it's springtime or if it's summertime, and in the morning it's cold, in the evening it's hot, so I don't know.
Yeah.
The weather's weird.
It's like
Everything's weird this week.
this is our fake spring. We'll have another couple weeks of winter here in a minute, and then we'll have spring.
Exactly. So I just want to also thank everybody that has subscribed to our YouTube channel. We have been pushing this week to get up to 100 subscribers, and we're halfway there. So thank you guys for subscribing to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate it. And if you haven't yet, please go to Blue Podcast on YouTube and subscribe. We're also on Instagram, and we're also on Facebook, and we recently got added to Spotify, and we're on TikTok as well. And we're trying to get our followers up on TikTok. That's hopefully going to be coming. Our viewership is going to come up there at some point. We'll make some friends. We'll see what happens.
YouTube once.
Yes.
And
wait, what did you say? How many?
It said YouTube or TikTok's a little bit more strict than YouTube. YouTube was 100 viewers until you get like your own name or whatever. TikTok, they want you to have 1,000.
Oh, right. So that shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It just takes time. Getting authentic people who don't want to see, your content. You don't want people there who don't want to be there. Exactly.
I'm just brand new to TikTok, so I don't know too much about TikTok yet, but I'm just there with my business. But I like it so far, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I told you that we're on Spotify now, so you can listen or watch. I know a lot of people, when I go to Spotify, I just usually listen. If I'm listening to a podcast, I don't really watch, but I know like you can still watch as well. So we're there now too, and we're a little more defined, so but it still should be Blue Podcast on Spotify. Right to know what they're reading. I'm sorry. You're frozen, or now you're not. Did you miss something I said?
Yeah, you went out for a little bit, so I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I was just saying, here at Bloop, our motto is readers have the right to know what they're reading. We feel strongly about readers, spending their time getting into a book, and all of a sudden something that might not be is in a book that would make you put the book down and not continue to read it. So Bloop is a little bit different, and when we read a book, we're giving content ratings. And the content rating system that we have is not so much to tell you what you should be reading. It's not to judge you on what you do read. It's just to try to give you an idea of what's going to be in the book that you're picking up, so that you can judge whether or not you even want to spend your time reading the book. And it's also to help an author get actual readers for their book that it is their cup of tea for. They're getting an audience.
Ideal readers. So
right, it's helping an author get an audience for their book. So empowering readers and enabling authors is what we're striving for here at Bloop. Yes. So today we're going to do something like that we did last week, which was the first half. We're going to talk about out content ratings again, and then Laura is going to review Spinning Silver by, what's her name?
Naomi
Novik. Yes.
Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. Okay.
It's like a mouthful.
So I'll hop right to it. So this book is on Goodreads. It's labeled young adult fantasy, but in our county library, it is adult. So that was interesting for me. So this book, I consider it to be higher fantasy. It follows 3 main characters, and they all narrate their own portions of the story. And then even within their own story, sometimes the characters that they interact with, they narrate. So I will tell you that listening to this audiobook was a doozy. Great narrator. Her accents are awesome. The story is great. But as a listener, I did get a little bit tripped up. We'll get to that in a minute. So let me tell you about Spinning Silver. This is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, which I don't come across very often. The last time I came across a little bit of a Rumpelstiltskin retelling was in the TV show Once. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time. Yeah.
So he's like morally gray and like all the things. So I don't come across Rumpelstiltskin very often, and like Rumpelstiltskin like really made me nervous and he scared me as a child. So I was like, I don't know about this. But basically, the synopsis only talks about one main character, and her name is Miriam. And she is the daughter and granddaughter of moneylenders. They are of Jewish heritage. And her father's inability to collect on the debts leaves their family in poverty, and her mother is very sick. And so she takes matters into her own hands and becomes the moneylender who collects debts. While she kind of boasts outward, like aloud, that she can turn silver into gold. So then you have these mystical fairies, fae, and they're called Exotic. Okay, so there's Russian influence here. He is the Sarek Lord, the king. He's the Sarek king, and he hears this, and he takes her challenge. And 3 times he challenges her that she has to turn his silver into gold. So it's fun to watch that story. There is another strong female character named Wanda, who comes from a very, very poor family. And her dad owes money to Miriam, and she winds up having to work for Miriam. But through her character, some things that I wanted readers to be aware of, you do see some physical abuse from the dad to Wanda. And then there is a 3rd female main character. Her name is Irina, and she is the privileged daughter of a duke, although she's never been treated as privileged. She's not beautiful enough, and her dad kind of keeps her like away. But what's unique is all 3 of these women's story has like a faint similarity, if you will. Like they have all been promised, given, or literally taken by a man in terms of marriage, when it comes to marriage. And so you kind of foresee all that play out, and then their strengths as well in terms of how they go from there and how their stories weave in together. So it's really cool. So things I really loved about this, to sum up, by the way, I gave this book 4.5 stars. Oh. I only took half a star away. I almost took a whole because it was frustrating as an audio listener, because you have no idea who is talking when sometimes, and you have to back up and be like, wait a minute, whose accent is this? Okay, who are the other characters around? Okay, now I know whose story is talking. And in the book, it's only this, like this little, like wheelbarrow or something. I don't know what it is. Not a wheelbarrow, but spinning wheel. And that's like in the book, that would be the only clue. And the reason why I got this is because I was so frustrated too. This is not an author problem. I would just like to see audiobooks do this for the listeners, especially in high fantasy. You know how Okay, I'm just gonna show you in my book because I thought it was important. I love a pronunciation guide. Okay, so I created
Mm-hmm.
a pronunciation guide in my book. I would really love for narrators to have like a pronunciation guide that they talk us through before the book starts. Like static. I didn't know if I was hearing the name correct or not until I went and got this book and then was like, oh, okay, now I can stop focusing on that word and move on. So that would have been really cool in this case. And also, like I said, letting us know when we're switching POVs and who's narrating at that point. But her writing is fantastic, immediately captured. I'm immediately part of the story in all scenes. And then, like I said, the weaving of the three storylines, the choices that these women had to make to save themselves and people that they loved was very empowering, and it really showed it. Like, you didn't have character, the female main character, oh, she's strong, and I'm like, yeah, but I want to see that. I don't want to be told that. And then she added so much more to the Rumpelstiltskin retelling. There was the Russian folklore. There's like a fire demon. There's the icy silver face. So you got like the fire and ice thing going on. It was just overall well done. And then in terms of the content rating, I'm going to. I mean, it's YA. I say it's YA 13 because even though I told you I think that it mentions we know that the dad is physically abusive. For the rating, it's because the descriptions of parental abuse it's like mild to moderate, which is allowed in the 13, but it's not lasting. It's not like persistent. It's not super graphic. It is get moderate graphic in one part. There is brief mention, but absolutely no description or explanation in terms of animal deaths. And like, there's like a brief mention of past rape, like, oh, they used to come to our lands and pillage and rape the women. Like, it's just mentioned. There's literally no discussion about it. Alcohol is used in connection with physical abuse. The word Jew is used, so there's a little bit of anti-Semitism addressed. So that was very interesting. I haven't read a book that had a fantasy like this, young adult fantasy that had like its own like fake world and then such a strong tie-in of like the Jewish heritage. So that was cool. And it doesn't weigh down the story; it just adds to it. The only sexual content. So I gave this a sexual content. I mean, I really want to give it a 0, but it is young adult, and I'm gonna give it a 1. There is one part where a man places a hand on a thigh, like moves the dress up a little bit and places a hand on the thigh. And then there's like a little short like internal monologue that the main character has with herself on how that made her feel. But there's no profanity, and though there is violence, it's not extreme or persistent. So I'm going to stick with a YA 13 and a sexual content of like 0 to 1. Okay. There we go.
So you would recommend the book. You would recommend the book.
I would recommend the book if you're okay with there not being heavy romance. So I told you I love romance in my book. So there is a little bit, but it's not heavy with that. It's very plot driven and very character focused on the three women's stories. And again, it has to do more with the journey that they do to save themselves and the people that they love. And then if you like high fantasy and if you like a ton of point of views and are okay with a slow read. So
this is like the second book in like a week, 2 weeks that you've read that have Russian folklore in them. So were you able to understand this one better than the last one that you read?
Way more descriptive because it's higher fantasy, way more descriptive. I didn't feel lost at all. I understood, and that's like, it was very, very well explained beginning to end why characters did what they did. Whereas in Hunted, you're talking about Hunted with Megan Spooner, I kind of felt like, where's where's the connection? Why the curse on the beast? So that's, yeah.
So this was better than the last one with the Russian folklore.
I believe
you need to study Russian folklore.
Who, me? No.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, that's awesome. What are you going to read next?
Well, currently I am listening to Defy the Night, which you've already read. It's for a book club tomorrow night, so
yes.
Let's hope I finish it before tomorrow night. Well, but it's a way faster read or listen, and it is roughly 7 hours, 7.5 hours shorter. So of listening time. So I think it's doable.
And it's kind of easy to understand too. So
yeah,
you don't have
there's just those books where you have to stop and pay attention.
Yes.
And that was definitely this book, and I'd have to constantly be rewinding, and I couldn't listen to it on playback as fast as I normally do, because then I couldn't understand with the accents, and then it was switching point of views. I'm like, yeah, this is going to take, it took me 2 weeks to listen to it. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, I am reading a book called It's a Wonderful Midlife Crisis. I actually finished the book just before I came in here. It's by Robin Peterman, and I loved it. And I've already started book 2 because she left us on a cliffhanger at after the first book, and I was like, what? So I immediately had to get the second one.
Yeah, you do. Well, the second one is out. Thank you for mentioning, this is a standalone, so you don't have to worry about it being whatever. And I will say my written review will be up on the website before our next live. It's
awesome. Okay, well, now we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about content ratings.
Yeah, because you're probably wondering, like, what is she talking about? Why 13 and then the whole guidance? Like, you're probably like, where are you getting this?
Yes, exactly. So I want to say that I've been telling you guys for the past 2 weeks now that we're working on our website. Our website is now live, so you can find our website at www.bluepodcast.com. And what I'm about to talk to you right now is on our website. It's under the reviews, I think, reviews and content portion.
Let me look really quick.
I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure exactly.
Reviews and blogs.
Reviews and blogs. Okay, so all our reviews that we've talked about thus far on every live that we've come on for, written reviews are going to be out there. Almost. I think Laura's got to submit one still. She's kind of working on them, but we're trying to get them on the website as soon as we do a review that's live, so that you can read them. And we kind of go into a little bit more, I think, on our written. I know I do, on what I write rather than what I talk about. So there's that. So tonight I'm just going to talk about 4 categories, and then next week we'll talk about the next 4. The next 2 and sexual content.
And then sexual content.
So we've kind of, Laura actually came up with all these, and I endorsed it immediately and collaborated with her on a few things. So that's how this all came down. But the first category I'm going to explain to you is children's category, which is for all ages. And the description under children's is: a children's book contains no coarse language, nudity, sex, violence, or other adult themes like sexuality and or sexual identity, drug or alcohol use. The children's rating is not a certificate of approval. We're just saying that this book is for children, all age children. Anything you want to add to children?
No, that's it. It's just anything you would feel very comfortable with watching with any child from birth to, 120. Like, it's not, there will be no focus on sex of any sort, any, relationships regarding that. It's a very, very children friendly, and it stays in that innocent, bubble phase. Like
a G rating, sort of.
Yeah, if you were to compare it, yep. If we're going to compare it to the movie ratings, it's like a G rating.
Okay. All right, the next category we have is middle grade. This is typically for ages 8 through 12. Light parental guidance is suggested. Some materials may not be suitable for children, and parents should make that decision. May contain minor coarse language and minor action violence without any serious injury. Natural nudity, but no sexual nudity. No sex scenes or drug use are present in the books. Content should not include any adult themes. So both of these, children and middle grade, they should not have really a sexual content rating at all.
No, I mean,
these
they
books
might catch feelings because it's 8 to 12. You know, we're getting towards puberty and all that. Like, they might catch feelings, right? But we're not going to, books in this rating are not going to explore that in terms of, you know, seeing anything on page or obsessively talking about it. Typically in middle grade, you're going to see relationships that revolve around friendships and family. And, you know, because around the age of 8, developmentally with children, they start to kind of come away from that protective bubble, like, you know, real concepts of real life kind of hit them, you know, like they'll know people, you know, friends, parents who are getting divorced or somebody died. And then, you know, that's like these hard topics are starting to become part of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually middle grade kind of helps deal with a lot more like developmental things and relationships. But middle grade should not, in terms of the grading system.
Sexual content, no sexual nudity, nothing like that. It should be very, very innocent. If there's any kind of romance, it would be very innocent. It would be
very
like
innocent. The feelings, oh, they touched my hand, you know, like very innocent.
Exactly. All right, the next category we have is young adult, which we refer to as YA 13. So this is typically for ages 13 and up. Parents cautioned. Some material may be inappropriate for children under 13. The theme of the book itself will not result in a rating greater than YA 13. These books may contain sex references, but no descriptive acts beyond kissing, nor a sexual acts rating of 1.
Which we'll talk about next week.
There are no restrictions on non-sexual nudity. Content may include mild profanity, no more than 2 throughout, drug innuendo, but not use, mildly crude or suggestive humor, and or moderate action violence. However, bloodshed is rarely present and the violence is not both realistic and extreme or persistent. So this kind of young adult category can have lots of steam in the sexual content realm, but little to no spice.
Okay, so let's talk about what STEAM is for our readers, because we're going to talk about this in the future with the book lingo. Because some people might not know the difference between STEAM and spice, and what is even STEAM and what is spice, you know. So, and we can talk about it more again next week, but just to kind of let people know.
Yeah, so STEAM would be like some tension. You feel some tension between the two. They're getting a lot more feelings. Maybe they're holding hands, but it's still very innocent. There's no deep kissing. I don't know how much spice. It's very little spice.
There could be kissing. I think there could be like the question like, how intense is this kiss gonna get? Okay, all right. The hand is creeping up and gonna go. Okay, it stops. You know, it's like it doesn't.
It's still pretty innocent. There might be some deep kissing, but not crazy amounts of it.
You might be reading like find yourself reading like, but then it doesn't go anywhere.
Exactly, but still very innocent.
Very innocent, and it's focusing more on like again the emotion and the feelings that go with it, not so much like the act of for the sake of, you know. Again, and this is not like a set in stone. Like this is not us censoring or telling parents what you have to do. You might find you have a very mature 11 or 12-year-old who could handle content 13 and up, right? In terms of the YA 13. So this is just to kind of set a baseline, and then the reader themselves or the parent themselves gets to look at it and say, okay, you know, I don't know about this one. I'm going to have to preview this one before I let my kid read it. Or, oh, it's middle grade, it's going to have this. Okay, I'm comfortable. You can read that. Because as we shared, You know, I think we're going to have a discussion where I share screenshots and I'll like black out the name. But sometimes I see comments where it's like vilifying parents, like first the concept or the idea that parents being like, no, I'm not comfortable with you reading that yet. For a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, it's considered censoring, which to me it's parenting. So I'd like to have that discussion. But the other discussion I want to have is the what was I going to say with it? Oh my gosh, it just kind of but people being like, oh well, I read all of these things and I was 14 or whatever, and that's great for you, but people still
Right.
need to have a safe place, something to come to, so that people who don't want to read that or who are not comfortable reading that should have a place that they can come to and be like, okay, I know that this rating is typically safe for me. But also the third thing now I remembered was comments being so like vilifying parents again with like, get off your lazy butts and read the book then for your child. I'm so sorry, but there's most of the homes here in the US these days, both parents have to work, and there's a lot going on, and I'm sure that they're working one full-time job, if not a full-time and a part-time, and trying to just make ends meet and make sure that their kids are fed and have a roof over their head and are loved. 2 weeks on audio. So I can only imagine what something like this would have taken a parent. And what if the parent doesn't really care about this genre? I mean, my gosh, it would take them a year to preview. This isn't like a movie you can hop on for 30 minutes and fast forward and still see some of the things going on. This is like, it's a
Well, I was going to say that because I'm not a big young adult reader. I mean, I do read occasionally. I read a young adult, but as we're going to talk about in more episodes to come, there's like this book lingo stuff. There's a vernacular within the book community that, although I've been reading for a lot of my life, I still wasn't paying attention to all this vernacular, this book lingo, and all of that. And I'm not a big young adult reader, and I didn't know a lot of things that publishers were doing, and I even told Laura at some point, even though my kids are adults, I was like, oh my gosh, did I really screw up? Did I let my kids read things they probably shouldn't have read because I wasn't paying attention? Not to mention, you don't have time to read what your kids are reading, plus read for yourself, plus do all the things. I mean, it's just kind of impossible. So
yeah, and I don't like when I use this word, but it just came from, to me, like a really insensitive place that, I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, but it was just like that the parents are responsible for like reading every source of material. No, the parents have a responsibility to like with their child, see if that book is appropriate for their child. And that's what, this is where Bloop really felt the rating system worked, and that's why we are bringing in the rating system that I have been researching and trying to create that will help empower readers, because time is an issue and parents have a lot less of it than their children. So especially when it comes to recreational stuff, and not everybody's a reader, not everybody's a fast reader, and genre is a thing and what people's interests are. And so to ask a parent to spend 3 months of their life reading something, and then what is that? I mean, that kind of with the relationship with their kid, there's got to be a better way to do it. And I'm confident that this is a step in the right direction, is another tool that parents can use to help. So
this is just a tool. If you trust that your child is reading age appropriate things, then great. But this is just a tool to help parents that are kind of stuck.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like we trust kids are reading age appropriate things, but right now, especially in the young adult marketing space, I feel like that for me as a parent, the trad publishing world has lost my trust. And I can't trust them. I mean, my child might be thinking that they are choosing an appropriate reading material, but it's not marketed in a way that empowers them through informed choice. And it's like, surprise, here's a whole chapter on a blowjob.
Yeah.
Like, no ma'am. So in terms of, because YA is 12 in the marketing world, in trad publishing marketing world, it is 12 to 17. And we talked about this before. So I lost trust in the traditional publishing world's marketing of their books. And so I don't think that my child is being empowered enough by the way that they're marketing books. I don't know what they're doing or why they're doing the things they're doing. But as a parent, I felt like, and there were lots of other parents who felt the same. There's lots of adults who feel this way too with the adult books that they're picking to read. They're feeling bamboozled. They're feeling surprised and not in a good way. And they already bought the book, so the publisher, they're going to just...
Right, and then the author runs the risk. The author actually ends up getting the backlash because, now some reader has picked up their book and now they're mad that there's certain content in there that the reader was not aware of, and now they're getting a bad review.
Yeah.
So...
Or the author's getting the rap, like, how dare you market this book for the kids? When really it was the publisher who chose that. So, because, authors give up a lot of their rights when it comes to all of that when they go traditional publishing. And I'm not trying to knock on traditional publishing as a whole. I'm just saying, as a consumer, as a reader, as a parent, I have lost my confidence in them to be able to do that. And I feel like we need a standard that's outside of their world, that could look in a third party and present some guidelines that will help them better be more consistent with their labeling, with their marketing, to help build that confidence again in readers, and giving readers, empowering them with their choices, and not trying to like swindle things in there. So,
well, we have one more category. We have one more category to discuss tonight. It's the young adult YA 16. This is typically for ages 16 and up. Parents strongly cautioned, not suitable for children or teens below the age of 16, with non-explicit, explicit, suggestive adult themes, references to some violence or coarse language. Can contain adult language, themes, and suggestions. There are no restrictions on non-sexual nudity. These books may contain sex references with more than brief nudity. There may be up to 3 uses of explicit language, including harsher, sexually derived words, though only as an expletive. There may be drug use and crude or suggestive humor. There may be bloodshed and realistic violence on more than one occasion. Detailed descriptions of physical interactions of sexual or violent nature. Do not venture beyond fade to black. That was a mouthful.
Yeah, because it starts to get more nuanced here, right? Like, they're close to being adults. And again, this is going to be left up to the reader and the parent to decide, am I ready for this? Because, kids 16 and older, they are preparing. In 2 years, they're going to be, or less, they're going to be out in the real world. And I'm sure they've seen or know of people in their school who are experiencing things and doing life or whatever. So a lot of authors want to touch on hard topics that, coming of age stories and teen, and it mentions adult themes because it might deal with teen pregnancy, or it might deal with, like the book you read, The Witch, right? You talked about how you labeled it YA 16, even though it has some adult themes in there, but the romance and relationship portion, they're teenagers going through it. So that's another thing that I'll probably have to add, is typically the age of the characters are certain ages or older, because you want the reader to understand that these characters are older. We're not talking about 12 years old doing these things, right?
Right.
So I'm going to put a note to myself right now. Okay.
And and that's another thing that that you and I have talked about before, is when we're reading a young adult book and the ages of the young adults in the book are young, and they're doing these very adult things, and it's almost like we get the ick reading about it because they're so young.
Not only that, but it's almost a little ick when, like, they're that good at it too. And it's like, first of all, I don't want to be reading about I don't want to be reading about kids doing that. That's ick to me. And then second of all, when they do show it, it's like they're that skilled and good at, like, no. I know it's fantasy or whatever, but it's still, the whole idea is still weird. I
Yeah.
feel like there's a line. There's a line when you're writing books about characters under age of consent doing things that would not be legal, and then I feel like it's just a fine line. Do you get what I'm saying, where I'm
Hmm.
going with that? Okay.
Yep.
I don't want to get in trouble
Yeah.
or
So
again.
usually when we're reading a book and we see that things are going past what is described in the description I just read, we kick it up to the next rating, right? That's just what we do. That's what I do when I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, there's a lot of going on here. Then I just kick it up to the next age group.
Yeah. Um, but that was very important to understand. And I don't want to get banned or anything, so I'm not going to like say the verbiage, but do you catch what I'm throwing? That
Yeah,
it's weird to me if adults are reading about underage, non
underage.
and children of age that's not of consent doing things in a book, because like I said before, it's not just words, people. There are plenty of people who read and they picture a whole movie in their head. So
Yes,
that's where I'm going to
I
leave that. Cause like,
understand.
okay, because I don't want to get banned or like, get in trouble for saying stuff or whatever. But that's why for me, there's like this line, and that's why it's going to be very important that in YA 16 up these characters and what you're seeing these characters do. That's why there's that guideline to help parents
Yeah,
decide, okay, is this appropriate or not for my child? And the readers
exactly.
themselves too. Is this appropriate for me? Is this something I enjoy reading or want to read? So.
Exactly. And again, that's what this whole thing is we're just trying to give a tool to readers so that they know what's in the
Yeah,
book
well,
without giving a
some
spoiler
confidence. Yeah,
or a
give them confidence.
trigger warning that gives half the book away when you read a trigger warning. You just want to kind of know like a rating so you know what you're picking up and reading.
Yeah, so some
I
consistency is so important, and people
Yeah,
thrive on consistency. I mean, it's like shown. When I was training to become a teacher and and teaching for 5 years, that was something that all these experts were telling us. Like, you want your students to be able to come into your classroom and know what to expect and how you want things from beginning, and no surprises. It's stressful enough for them to be doing this. So this is what the goal is, to have a consistent system that is kind of like, um, yeah, just I don't know what else to say. I have a lot of brain fog. I'm sorry for my migraine, but something consistent to give them the confidence, like, okay, and I know from experience I can venture a little bit towards middle grade more. I can venture a little bit towards, we'll talk about this next week, the sweet and sour adult or whatever, based on everybody's individual preference, maturity level, their past traumas, just their physical health, their mental health, what you can handle. But that's why it's so important. And what the publishing industry has been missing is this consistent rating system, because right now all we have at our disposal is what the publishing house is telling us they're marketing their book, which I already shared with you I've lost confidence in. And then second, people's opinion on whether or not they enjoyed or liked the book. But
right.
but
And
people's emotions can change day to day. And people admit all the time, I see reviews, well, I think I want to go back and relook at this book because I was feeling a certain way over here when I was reading it, and I'm not sure I gave it a fair review, or maybe I gave it too good of a review and not. See what I'm saying? Because emotions fluctuate, but fact is fact.
right. And we do appreciate the authors that do take the time to give a content rating. I've seen quite a few that do, and that's amazing. And we do appreciate that for sure. I
Yeah.
just don't like the trigger warnings that come along with it when a lot of people will say, this triggered me in these ways, because I feel like that just gives away a lot of the book and it spoils it for me. So I want
Well,
to just
sometimes
know
it
what it
doesn't, but like sometimes,
doesn't.
yeah, sometimes I feel like sometimes the story is ruined when you're trying to research a book to find out if it is appropriate for you or not through your informed
Mm-hmm.
choice, and then you're trying to see the reviews, and then you're being hit with spoilers galore.
Right.
So,
And you're like,
you know,
dang it, I don't have to read this now. I know it happens
right?
throughout the whole book.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, we're just trying to give, again, we're just trying to empower and offer a consistent system that you can rely on. That is the word that my brain has been trying to say, is to rely on, you know, that you have faith in that rating system because it's going to follow these things in there so that you can feel comfortable. And then you can look further, I guess, in terms of, you know, genre and tropes and all the things to see if that book is still something you would enjoy, and even knowing that it's safe.
We're going to do an episode on tropes because I know that people not everybody knows what that is, and not everybody knows how many there are. So we're gonna dive deep down that too. So
yeah, which you're gonna have to tell us, Rebecca. Rebecca reads a lot more thrillers than I do because they stress me out a lot, and I also find them to be a lot slower paced, and I need like all the romance. So tropes that I'm talking about are really within romance, but I wonder if there's like tropes for mystery thriller and other, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would think so because because a lot of times mystery thrillers, they have romance in them. So you do have some of those tropes, you know, grumpy sunshine, or you can have a trope that's, you know, normally it's like enemies to lovers, really. I mean,
really, A House Just Across the Lake, there was no real nothing in there for me. No romance.
No. And then there's some, I don't really like a whole lot of mystery thriller unless something happens right out of the gate. Like somebody's got to die, like in the first 2 sentences for me to really like it from the beginning.
I need death, Laura. And I'm like, I'm sorry, the content rating, that's not for me.
Need some death. Really like the death.
But I meant like, so for fantasy, you know, you have like your chosen one trope, right? Like they're the chosen one, or you have like the, I don't know, we'll come up with them, but that's the one that came off my head right there. Like, you know, they're the chosen one, and the fate of the world depends on that one person, or they are they're the secret heir, you know, like the secret identity, and then it turns out that they are this lost princess, or I don't know what the actual trope name is. So I'm gonna have to do some digging because I feel like there's a lot more tropes besides just in the romance.
Oh yeah, there are.
Yeah, there are.
I'm sure.
I just don't know what they are. I'm gonna have to do my research.
I haven't really even thought about it, to be honest with you, other than young adult stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna have to put my thinking cap on about that too. But I think that we should probably wrap up this episode. And again, guys, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get all of our content, because we're getting ready to pull all of our content down, all of our full episodes down from Instagram, and we're just going to have them on YouTube. So you can still go to YouTube and watch the full episode, but we're just going to be putting up shorts on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And put a full live episode on YouTube and Spotify. So make sure you go subscribe to our channel and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And what else can I tell you? That's it. Oh, yeah, and like us on Spotify. Like us on Spotify too. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week, where I think I'm going to go ahead and review It's a Wonderful Midlife Crisis. I did not read the Colleen Hoover book November 9 because it wasn't available in my library app. Somebody took it, so I wasn't able to read it. So I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to review the book that I just read. So join us next week. Until then, guys, have a good night. Bye. Bye.